when I've been told, this is of course long before I was born, that when my grandmother first got out of normal college in 1898, she got a job teaching in Hudson. She was the school teacher in Hudson, and it took her 2 days to find it. She set out from Dade City with her uncle, Tom Cheek, who was a Confederate veteran, acting as her escort, and they took out in a wagon for her to take over the school in Hudson. And there were no marked roads in those days, of course, and they kept taking wrong turns and winding up in some abandoned turpentine camp in the Land O'Lakes area, and eventually they got to Hudson. My grandmother operated the school, and the Hudson family let her board with them. So she took her meals and slept in the Hudson home. There was a feud going on at the time, and the Hudson men kept firearms within reach at all times. And she used to talk about, as a young school teacher, sitting down to dinner, and there'd be rifles and shotguns next to the chairs, just in case somebody tried to attack them. There was another family over on the coast that had a feud going with the Hudsons, and though no one actually got killed for a year or two, they were all afraid that the other group was going to bushwhack them. In an earlier period, now before I was old enough to go to school, I remember going to the Trilby School, where my grandmother taught. My grandmother had been a school teacher in Pasco County starting in 1898. And when I was small, she was still teaching in Trilby. And the school consisted of 2 teachers, my grandmother and another woman. My grandmother taught the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade, and the other woman taught the 4th, 5th, and 6th. And if you lived in Trilby, you didn't go beyond the 6th grade unless you could find transportation into Dade City. And you still had a lot of people who had no electricity, outhouses, all that was real common. There's a great deal more just swimming in lakes. You know, people didn't have swimming pools. You went out to a lake and went swimming. And school groups would go either to the Withlacoochee or to Lake Iola. I learned to swim at Lake Iola. It was a school-sponsored project. Before we got TVs, before TVs were widespread locally, the Pasco Theater had a standing practice that every Saturday, children, anyone under 15, could come into the theater and for 15 cents watch cowboy movies for 4 or 5 hours. They started about 7 in the morning and went to noon, just nothing but old cowboy movies. And the theater would be absolutely packed, no available seating anywhere. Of course, it was segregated then, so white kids sat on the ground floor and black kids sat in the balcony. But for 15 cents, you could watch cowboy movies for half a day at the Pasco Theater.
Predominantly guys, or were there girls in there?
Oh, lots and lots of girls. It was just, that was the thing to do if you were 6, 7, 8, 9 years old in Dade City. You went to the Pasco Theater Saturday morning and watched the cowboy movies. And parents would normally give the child 25 cents, 15 cents for admission and 10 cents for popcorn.
What were some of your favorite pastimes you had as a child?
Hanging around with my friends, hiking, hunting for Indian artifacts. I was always interested in local history and archaeology. And friends of my father's who owned ranches and orange groves would let me go out on their property and look for artifacts. And I spent many hours with a couple of friends hiking around over the countryside. I was never very interested in sports.
What were some of the stories you remember your grandparents telling you as you were growing up?
My grandfather often would talk about his childhood in Texas. He was 15 years old when he arrived in Dade City. And he had grown up in Texas. My great-grandfather was a medical doctor and had been a physician on the frontier in Texas. He got very tired of being awakened in the middle of the night by mysterious men wearing dusters wanting him to patch bullet holes and ask no questions. And so one of his incentives in moving to Florida was he was trying to get away from the practice of medicine. He got to Dade City and people found out he was a doctor, and within a year or two he was practicing medicine again.